of a moving car. That's what they're doing with their resources. You look at Asia Wilson's signature shoe, her logo, resources wasted. You look at the Paige Bueckers Nike logo. Does this look like they really wanted to do this, or they were just catering to that crowd? So they said, oh, let's just get up Paige and let's give her a logo. Let's cater to the crowd.
Opening up the window, taking a double bag of cash, and just throwing it out of a moving car. That's the visual he just painted. And it's not hyperbole. We're watching major corporations make business decisions that defy basic economics. Nike, Lego, and a dozen other brands are pouring resources into athletes who generate minimal return, and the numbers prove it's not even close.
It's a company I grew up with. I think many of us had these. Paige Bueckers signs a deal with Lego as she prepares to be the next signature athlete. Now, my question to you. How many kids know who Paige Bueckers is? Number one. How many kids' parents know who Paige Bueckers is? Number two. And if you're walking in a toy store, whether it's Target, whether it's a toy section at Walmart, and you see this face on a box, who knows who this is? Seriously.
Let's start with the Lego deal that dropped this week. Paige Bueckers becomes their next signature athlete, and the announcement came with promotional materials using Iowa Hawkeye colors, black and yellow. Not Dallas Wings, navy blue and lime green. Not UConn's red, white, and blue. Iowa's colors, the team she never played for. Think about what that reveals. Lego's marketing department knows the truth that ESPN won't say out loud. Paige Bueckers doesn't move the needle on her own. She needs to be attached to Caitlin Clark for anyone to pay attention. They're using another athlete's brand equity to sell their product because the person they actually signed doesn't have enough recognition to stand alone.
I wouldn't even know myself. But the craziest part of all this is that they're using Iowa Hawkeyes colors to promote a UConn Husky play. Interesting. They're using Iowa Hawkeyes colors to promote a Dallas Wings play. Interesting. So they need to find something to connect Paige Bueckers to Caitlin Clark so people can even pay attention to this.
Here's the test that every company should run before signing a WNBA player. Walk into Target. Find the toy section. Put a face on a box. Ask yourself, how many parents walking past that shelf know who this person is? How many kids? Because if the answer is almost nobody, you're not making a business investment. You're making a political statement with shareholder money. The numbers back this up in brutal detail. Paige Bueckers' WNBA debut on ION averaged 639,000 viewers. That's not a typo. 639,000 people tuned in to watch the player that Nike, Lego, and a dozen media outlets have been forcing down our throats for 2 years.
On ION for their WNBA debut, somebody that the masses cared about, do you think they would be put on ION for their WNBA debut? Somebody that generates real traction, real ratings, real numbers would have ION be the platform for their WNBA debut? Well, we look at Caitlin Clark. Her WNBA debut averaged 2.12 million viewers, and ESPN was smart. They said, I want that game. That game, that Caitlin Clark WNBA debut, I want that game on my platform. ESPN was looking at this season's 2025. Who's got their WNBA debut? Anybody that we want? No, nobody that we want's WNBA debut. We'll pass on that.
Now let's compare that to Caitlin Clark's debut on the exact same network. ION wasn't even on most people's channel guide before last season. It's a network that shows reruns and low-budget programming. Most viewers had to Google how to find it. And Caitlin Clark's debut on ION pulled 724,000 viewers, nearly 100,000 more people found an obscure network they'd never heard of to watch Caitlin Clark, then tuned in to watch Paige Bueckers. But it gets worse for the manufactured star narrative. Caitlin Clark's actual WNBA debut on ESPN averaged 2.112 million viewers. ESPN fought to get that game on their platform because they understood what it would deliver. Meanwhile, ION got stuck with Paige Bueckers because nobody else wanted it. Later in the season, The Dallas Wings played the Liberty on NBA TV. That's a premium cable network specifically dedicated to basketball fans. The most engaged, most likely to watch audience you can find. Paige Bueckers playing in that game pulled 260,000 viewers. Caitlin Clark's NBA TV games were regularly hitting 550,000 to 740,000 viewers. She set NBA TV records for WNBA bar sets multiple times. Paige didn't come close once.
Tuned in to Caitlin Clark and her debut on ION before people even knew that this network existed. Now, I'm not a mathematician. I don't know how to reverse calculate the numbers, but I would assume that this 639 last year would probably look a little bit more like 430. Maybe, if I had to take a guess. Crazy work. Crazy work. But then we look at Paige Bueckers a little bit later in the season. Wings Liberty on NBA TV, 260,000. You guys remember last year, Caitlin Clark on NBA TV, 500,000, 550,000, 570,000, 580,000, 620,000, 740,000. NBA TV records for a WNBA game. Paige didn't even come close to that. Manufactured motion. Forced star. She's getting forced upon us. Look at the attendance to the Dallas Wings games.
The attendance data tells the same story. Dallas Wings play in a sub-10,000 seat arena. It's one of the smallest venues in the WNBA. They couldn't sell it out consistently during Paige Bueckers' rookie season. Not until a specific team came to town. Not until Caitlin Clark visited. Then suddenly, every seat was filled. This is where the corporate decision-making becomes genuinely baffling. Nike designed a logo for Paige Bueckers that looks like a paint bucket. It's not stylized, it's not iconic. It's literally just a bucket with the letters PB. Compare that to the effort Nike puts into signature athletes they actually believe in. LeBron's logo is instantly recognizable. Giannis has a distinctive mark. Kevin Durant's is clean and memorable. The Paige Bueckers logo looks like something a design intern threw together in 15 minutes because they had a deadline and didn't really care about the outcome. And that's the point. Nike doesn't care about the outcome. They're not trying to sell shoes, they're trying to check a box.
Somebody visited until a certain team came to town, not sold out. And we're talking about a sub 10,000 seat arena, not sold out. It's very interesting that these companies are just willing to throw money down the drain just to appease certain people. I mean, Paige Bueckers is now the face of Unrivaled, and it's starting in 2 days. Nobody really cares. At all. And this isn't even a Paige Bueckers video. These companies are just wasting resources on catering to the crowd, instead of giving people what they really want.
Unrivaled Basketball League starts in 2 days, and Paige Bueckers is positioned as one of the faces of the league. The promotional push has been significant. The media coverage has been wall-to-wall, and the public response has been silence. Social media engagement is minimal. Casual fans aren't talking about it. The WNBA's own audience isn't particularly excited. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark isn't playing in Unrivaled, and that decision has generated more discussion than anything the league has actually done. People are debating why she's not there, whether she should reconsider what it means for the league's credibility. An athlete who isn't participating is driving more conversation than the athletes who are. That's the reality these companies refuse to acknowledge. Forced stardom doesn't work. You cannot manufacture genuine fan interest through corporate partnerships and media propaganda. Either people care or they don't, and the evidence is overwhelming that casual fans do not care about Paige Bueckers.
To be honest with you, Paige Bueckers, she deserves better than this Nike logo. Right? This is trash. It's a bucket. It isn't Paige Bueckers', it's Nike's fault for wasting their time and resources on an athlete that they really don't care about. That's my point here. You look at this Lego, you tell me that they can't make a better Lego than this? Of course they could, if they wanted to. It's the thing.
So why are these companies doing this? Why is Nike wasting design resources on a logo they clearly don't believe in? Why is Lego signing an athlete they have to prop up with someone else's colors? Why is ESPN dedicating airtime to a player who delivers a fraction of the ratings? The answer is uncomfortable, but obvious. They're catering to a specific crowd. There's a segment of WNBA media and fandom that desperately wants Paige Bueckers to be the face of the league. Not because of what she's accomplished on the court, not because of the revenue she generates, not because of fan demand, but because she checks certain boxes that Caitlin Clark does. Here's what makes this particularly frustrating for people who actually want the WNBA to succeed financially. These companies are taking resources that could build something real and flushing them down the drain to appease people who don't actually drive revenue. Look at the Caitlin Clark merchandise ecosystem. The Wilson basketball, with her name sold out repeatedly, retailers couldn't keep it in stock. The signature shoe from Nike sold out in hours every time a new colorway dropped. Barbie made a Caitlin Clark doll that flew off shelves. Funko Pop created an action figure that became one of their best-selling sports figures. Independent t-shirt companies made thousands of dollars selling Clark-related designs. That's what organic fan demand looks like. You don't have to force it. You don't have to attach it to someone else's brand. You don't have to use another team's colors to make people notice. The demand exists naturally, and companies simply have to meet it. Now look at Paige Bueckers' merchandise. The Nike logo that looks like a paint bucket isn't generating buzz. The Lego announcement got more mockery than excitement. Her jersey sales are unremarkable. There's no secondary market of independent creators making Bueckers content, because there's no audience demanding it. And yet Nike, Lego, and others continue to invest as if the opposite were true. They're operating in a fantasy world where media narratives override market reality, where what reporters say on ESPN matters more than what customers actually buy, where checking boxes is more important than checking bank accounts. The A'ja Wilson situation is equally telling. Nike gave her a signature shoe and logo. The design effort was minimal. The marketing push was perfunctory. The sales were disappointing. Wilson is a multiple MVP, a champion, one of the most dominant players in WNBA history. And Nike treated her signature line like an obligation they had to fulfill rather than an opportunity they were excited about. That's what happens when you're signing athletes for reasons other than business. When the goal is representation rather than revenue, you get half-hearted efforts that disrespect everyone involved. Wilson deserved better than a rushed logo and minimal marketing. But Nike wasn't really trying to build her brand. They were trying to have a certain type of athlete in their portfolio. The Paige Bueckers Lego situation is even more absurd because Lego has historically been very selective about their athlete partnerships. They don't just sign anyone. Their sports licenses usually go to global superstars with massive youth appeal. And they chose Paige Bueckers, a player most kids have never heard of, whose own team's arena doesn't sell out, whose games on niche cable networks struggle to hit 300,000 viewers. What's the business case? How does Lego's CFO justify this expenditure? You can't point to ratings, you can't point to merchandise sales, you can't point to social media engagement, you can't point to youth awareness. Every metric that would normally justify a signature athlete partnership is absent, unless the metric isn't business performance. Unless the metric is something else entirely. And that's what makes this so frustrating. For WNBA fans who want the league to grow sustainably, these companies are sending a clear message: we care more about optics than outcome. Think about the message this sends to young players coming up. Work hard, dominate your sport, break records, sell out arenas, drive historic ratings, and you'll get rewarded. Unless someone else checks the right boxes, in which case they'll get the partnerships regardless of performance, and you'll get a rushed logo that looks like a paint bucket. That's not sustainable. That's not how you build a league. That's how you breed resentment and cynicism. That's how you lose the audience that actually exists while chasing an audience that doesn't. The Caitlin Clark effect on the WNBA was undeniable. Attendance up 48% year over year. Ratings up over 100% for multiple broadcasts. Merchandise sales at record level. Playoff viewership hit numbers the league had never seen. And the response from certain corners of WNBA media was to downplay it, to credit everyone else, to insist that other players deserved equal attention, despite generating a fraction of the interest. Now, those same voices are celebrating the Paige Bueckers Lego deal as if it's equivalent to what Clark has accomplished, as if corporate partnerships given for reasons other than performance are the same as partnerships earned through market demand. They're not the same, and pretending otherwise insults everyone's intelligence. Here's the fundamental question these companies need to answer. Are you trying to make money, or are you trying to make a statement? Because right now, you're making statements with other people's money. Nike shareholders should ask why resources are going to athletes who don't move product. Lego's board should ask why they're signing someone who needs another athlete's colors to generate recognition. And WNBA fans who want the league to succeed should ask why the league's media partners and corporate sponsors seem more interested in forcing narratives than following the data. Because this approach doesn't grow the league. It alienates the audience that actually exists. It wastes resources that could be invested in athletes who generate real returns. And it creates a two-tier system where some players are rewarded for performance, while others are rewarded for checking boxes. The market has spoken clearly. Caitlin Clark is the driver. The ratings prove it. The attendance proves it. The merchandise sales prove it. And companies that ignore that reality in favor of forced alternatives are literally throwing money out the window of a moving car. So Lego, Nike, and everyone else making these decisions, are you in the business of making money, or are you in the business of making certain people happy? Because you can't do both when the people you're trying to please don't actually buy your product. At some point, shareholders are going to notice. At some point, the board is going to ask why you're investing in athletes who deliver minimal return. And what are you going to tell them? That you were catering to the slows, that you were checking boxes, that you were making statements. Good luck explaining that when the quarterly earnings come in, and the signature line didn't sell. Good luck justifying the expense when the athlete you signed can't fill a 10,000-seat arena. Good luck defending the decision when the data shows you ignored the player who actually moves the needle in favor of the player who fits your preferred narrative. The WNBA has a once-in-a-generation opportunity to grow into something financially sustainable. Caitlin Clark delivered an audience the league has never had, and the response from too many companies and media members has been to minimize that achievement and prop up alternatives who don't generate the same results. That's not strategy. That's ideology overriding economics. And it's going to cost the league the momentum it desperately needs.